Thank you, John. Good afternoon. My name is Donna, and I'm manager of community watershed coordination. Just want to make sure, John, are you guys still seeing my screen?
Yes, we're all set, Donna.
Perfect, great. So as I mentioned, my name is Donna. I'm the manager of community watershed coordination here at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. We are hosting today a water pollution control loan fund workshop. We also have one tomorrow. This with us today, we are grateful to have our guests, Katie Courtwright and Ryan Lake from the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance. We're going to save their Q&A portion to the end of the workshop so that we can keep you engaged until then. But please think of questions that you may have for them, you can ask those at the end. So otherwise, this is the agenda that we're going to be covering. So we'll go over some of the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund program basics. We'll talk about how the bipartisan infrastructure law contributed to that program. And then we'll talk about principal forgiveness and scoring, as well as the district's involvement in this program. So the Ohio EPA runs two state revolving loans. Those two loan programs are the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund, as well as the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account. The Water Pollution Control Loan Fund is directed at Clean Water Act issues as related to water quality and human health. And then the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account is more directed at drinking water and funding that type of infrastructure. So in Ohio, the office that runs these programs is called the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, commonly called DEFA. So if you hear us talk about DEFA, that's who we're talking about. DEFA offers technical assistance for these programs, as well as the financial assistance. To the left there, you see that DEFA does partner with the Ohio Water Development Authority to administer these two programs, but OWDA is not part of the Ohio EPA. They work as the fiscal agent. OWDA was created in 1968 by the state of Ohio to assist with environmental financing to communities and for eligible projects. They have many loan programs that they facilitate separately, including dam safety and brownfield loans as well. So what is the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund program? It was started in 1989 to help communities address Clean Water Act issues, as I mentioned. There was an initial investment of federal seed money to the program, and yearly there's additional federal capitalization grant funds that are invested into the program. The state also must contribute match dollars to the program yearly. So loan repayments go back into the account as well, and all of this helps to leverage bonds and keep the program going year after year. DEFA has the capacity to fund about $700 million a year. What types of projects do they fund? As they will tell you, and if you listen to their own webinars, they'll say that's probably easier to tell you what they won't fund. But here's a list of projects that were recently funded in 2021. As you can see, we've highlighted some of the project types that come up in our local sewer system evaluation studies. So if you are a community within the sewer district service area, we completed those local sewer system evaluation studies where we looked at the local pipes that carry flow to the district's wastewater treatment plants, and we identified problem areas as well as planning level solutions for those issues. So within those community reports, many of these things that you see highlighted here may be mentioned, and so those could be good projects for the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund. They also fund stormwater work, and if you're interested in talking to them about that, there's some contact information at the end as well. So before we move on to the types of fundings, does anyone have questions, or DEFA, do you have any comments on projects that you fund typically? Okay, hearing none, I will keep moving along. So what does the program offer? There are a few different things. So if you have interest in a designing or a plan loan, you can get a 0 interest 5-year design or planning loan. They also offer below market rate construction loans, and those can be a 20 or 30-year loan repayment period. Additionally, this program, prior to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, has offered competitive principal forgiveness, as you'll see here in green, or what we're calling loan forgiveness, to eligible projects, but that was for populations less than 10,000. So that has changed since this last program management plan that was released this last funding year for 2023. For program year 2023, they had 613 project submittals totaling $2.8 billion. While this is the total for the projects that were submitted, not all projects will be ready to move forward. Not all communities will want to accept the loan at this, at this junction. And so in their program management plan, it is stated that the Ohio EPA intends to fund through loans or available principal forgiveness money all eligible projects that are ready to proceed in the upcoming program year. I do want to pause on this and state that our DEFA and our revolving loan fund is very effective. They do a great job administrating. And so it's very impressive that if your project is ready and you're willing to accept a loan and it's an eligible project, they're able to give you that loan. So how has the bipartisan infrastructure law really impacted this program? The bipartisan infrastructure law is also known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. You may hear us refer to it as IIJA. This law was signed in November 15th of 2021, and there was a commitment of $1.2 trillion in infrastructure funding over 5 years. So some of that money was targeted at water infrastructure. And additionally, 49% of those new funds, no more, no less, were to be grants or offered as loan forgiveness. And so that additional money from the bipartisan infrastructure law makes its way down into this water pollution control loan fund. Another major point that I want to mention here is that with this bipartisan infrastructure law and this new money coming in, DEFA took the opportunity to adjust their criteria slightly. So prior to this, for principal forgiveness, communities had to be small communities. So it was communities of a population of 10,000 or less. And that was adjusted to include large communities. And so in this last program management plan, large communities were eligible. So let's look at some numbers. Now the exact totals year to year will vary. However, I thought that this was helpful looking at before that IIJA or the bipartisan infrastructure law to after that. So in 2022, you can see there was about $35 million available in principal forgiveness. And in 2023, there was 75 million available in principal forgiveness. Some funding that's not on this slide was also allocated to address emerging contaminants. And so you can see that with the bill, there is much more money available for principal forgiveness than there was previously, and that there is this new group of communities that are available to receive that funding that previously were not. Here is the criteria that we adapted from the water supply revolving loan fund. I'm not sure if DEFA wants to chime in on whether or not this is confirmed or not, but these are the updated numbers for 2024. I don't know, Katie or Ryan, if this is confirmed as the new numbers or not.
Yeah, so we use the most recent American Community Survey census data for these figures. And so this is the 2021 data that they released beginning of this year. So this is all up to date.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So the affordability criteria that you see here is what makes communities eligible to receive principal forgiveness. You have to meet 3 of the 4 criteria listed, and it is for small or large communities. Communities that are eligible for principal forgiveness can receive up to $4 million in principal forgiveness, but communities can only receive 1 principal forgiveness loan each year. And so these are the updated numbers, and we'll show you a list of the communities within the sewer districts area that we believe qualify based on those numbers. So I'll give you a second to look at these. I should add that with the adjustments this year, it looks like Willoughby Hills and Parma are the 2 communities that were not eligible last year that we believe are eligible this year. So now to talk a little bit about scoring. The categories that you see on the left here are roughly how scoring is broken down. So small communities, large communities, and then projects directed at human health, sewer overflows, nutrient reduction, and regionalization. So all the projects get brought in and then are scored. Ohio EPA developed a system which can be used to rate and rank on a single priority list the actions addressing both point and non-point source impacts on water resources, and that's the integrated priority system. I'm not sure if you're able to click on that link. I think you probably can, but that will take you directly to the manual on how they score. So since its inception in 1998, this system has placed the highest level of priority on projects that address human health concerns and will continue to do so. So these would be your sewer overflow projects, your failing septic systems, basement backups, projects like that. Next, this scoring system places a second level of priority on categories of projects which protect or restore aquatic life uses on surface water resources, protect or restore wetlands, and then protect or restore groundwater. So from there, they score using this integrated priority system, and then they will have several projects that tie. And because it is competitive to get that principal forgiveness, they use a readiness to proceed criteria as a tiebreaker. So there are several criteria for that readiness to proceed. One is established user charge system, an approvable facility plan submitted with the project nomination, evidence that the design is underway, permit to install application submitted or approved if needed, and then public participation. So they'll go through and they'll score your readiness to proceed on your project, and then those scores will get added together. So from there, DEFA will put out their draft program management plan, usually in November. So the program management plan will show all the projects that were submitted, how they scored, what categories they fall into, as well as all the information you could ever want about the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund is also in that PMP. It's very long. So that will come out in the draft PMP, and then there's a comment period. And then after the comment period, they submit the final program management plan with the scored out projects. So an update on the district's assistance for this coming program year. To all communities, we are offering to meet with the communities to review potential projects from the local sewer system evaluation community reports to see which projects might be good for you as a community to submit for water pollution control loan funding. We're offering technical support on reviewing those SSES reports. We understand that while there's a lot of information there, there may be some inferences that you might need assistance with getting to exact, planning level, cost estimates, things like that. And then loan application assistance in general, if you have questions, we're happy to help. For the disadvantaged communities that were listed on one of the previous slides, we will be helping to submit design projects for the communities. So that means we would be helping you with that project submittal process, helping you pick out which projects seem to be the most reasonable. If we've designed the project, which I'm not sure that we have any of those right now, but if we have designed the project and the community is interested in construction funding, we would also help submit those projects for construction funding. If the project is successful in potentially receiving that principal forgiveness funding, the sewer district's design and construction department would be willing to help implement those projects. So we would work sort of as your contractor to, or your consultant to design those projects. At the end of the day, though, the community does have to be the one to sign off on the project submittals and on the loan applications. And then at the end of the day, they would be the owner of the project. Here's our timeline. So right now, we are in May. We're working on this. We're working on these workshops. This is the first of 2. In early June, we'll be meeting with all of the member communities individually. Anyone who wants a meeting, we'll meet with. And so the watershed team leaders, Nicole, Ann, and Cisco will be sending out emails to the communities saying that if you're interested in a meeting, then we can go ahead and set that up. By the end of June, we hope to receive all the project proposals that communities are interested in, go through those and identify which projects make sense for us to submit together. And then in July, we will meet with DEFA to review those projects and help give DEFA some context on the work that we're hoping to do. In mid-August, we'll go to the board to make sure that the board is comfortable with us nominating projects. And then in August, we will submit those applications. The applications or submittals are due to DEFA August 31st. November, as I mentioned, is when that draft PMP will come out. And then December is when we should have the final PMP from DEFA. So after the final PMP is released, if you were chosen for principal forgiveness or chosen for a loan, there are a few pieces of paperwork that you'll need to put together. So you'll have the completed loan application, the resolution for the loan agreement, which is actually in the back of the loan application. There's a template that you can use. You'll need an engineering agreement if you have a design loan, or a construction contract if you're going to have a construction loan. There is a loan fee regardless of whether it's principal forgiveness or a regular loan. It's not too hefty, but it is required for either of those. You have to show that you have a local user charge system, and then you would want to include your maintenance agreement. Many of you have maintenance agreements with CCDPW. And then proof of treatment from the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, whether that's a separate agreement or otherwise, we can help you get your paperwork together for that portion. If you're working with us, as if you're having us hire the consultant and work through that process that way, then you would also have a resolution with the sewer district that you would want to include in that submittal. And then special emphasis, we want to make sure that you guys are aware that there is a user charge system that will need to be in place to accept all loan funding, especially for construction funding. The established user charge systems for water and wastewater utilities should adequately account for debt service, system operations, and maintenance, and then also capital improvements. So with that, we will take questions for DEFA or for the sewer district. With us today, as I mentioned, we have Katie Courtwright, who is the Assistant Chief for the Office of Financial Assistance, and we also have Ryan Lake, who's an engineering supervisor with the Environmental Engineering Unit. So feel free to unmute and ask questions, or you can put your questions in the chat. I guess while folks are warming up, Katie or Ryan, do you have anything else you wanted to mention about the program?
I don't think so too much, Donna. I just, a couple of things I'd mentioned, about the principal forgiveness funding. We are anticipating a similar number for the upcoming program year to be just shy of 75 million. So about 74.3. So right in that same ballpark. As before, I'd also say, the scoring matrix, the integrated priority system that's there, we are looking, to make some adjustments to that. But the overall goals will be the same, so we'll still be prioritizing human health issues as well as water quality benefits. So those two primary goals remain the same, just might make it a little bit simpler on our end to score the projects that come through the door. But we'll let folks know about that. The last thing, John, I'd say is just, we will have a webinar in advance of the call for nominations in August to walk through any changes or adjustments that we've made to the program and what to anticipate from program years you're putting together your project nomination forms.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from the group?
I actually had a question for Katie. I wondered, well, actually, either Donna, if a community wants to apply on their own, can they do that? If they are a NeoSword community, do we need to go through you, or can the community apply by itself?
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome to apply on your own.
Okay.
Any other questions? Going off of Maria's comment, Katie, if communities want to meet with DEFA, can they do that if they want to discuss their project ahead of submitting?
Absolutely. And we'd very much encourage that. Sometimes, we meet with communities on a monthly basis, if they have a big project coming up and they want to get all their kind of ducks in a row, we'll meet with them for a number of months leading up to nomination time. But absolutely, we're happy to meet with anyone in advance of the nomination and try to iron out some of those details before you submit your documentation.
Hi, I'm sorry, I jumped a little bit late. Will this, I wanted to see the first few slides. Will this program be emailed to everyone, the video of it or the slides?
Yep, we can send out the slides as well as the recording.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. Katie or Ryan, are there any recommendations to principal forgiveness eligible communities on their submittals that could make them more competitive?
Well, I can start, and then Ryan, certainly, if you have anything to add and jump in there. But I think the projects that were awarded, in the current program year, they ended up with a high project score. And that's sort of that first slice that you talked about, Donna, in terms of figuring out who's eligible for principal forgiveness and getting to those dollars. And it's about being able to document for us, those like human health issues. And the nomination form, kind of guides you to that by asking a series of questions. Have you had water in basements? What is the issue that you're trying to address with your project? So giving us that information sure helps it go a lot smoother for us in that scoring process, and make sure we're giving you the maximum benefit, for the issue you have going on.
Okay. Ryan, anything?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that because, that first score of human health is vitally important to scoring the highest. But as you mentioned, we then secondarily score all those because we frequently have, ties up top with the highest score with the readiness to proceed. And that's where having proper facilities planning and having your plans ready to go, or at least letting us know where you stand on all that, tends to help you score a little bit higher. That includes, any public participation you've had, so that the public's not caught off guard with a new loan potentially coming your way. So Katie kind of mentioned with communities we know are going to be scoring high on principal forgiveness possibility. We will set up meetings, at certain intervals, just to make sure we're all communicating where we stand on a project, what the expectation is, when those sets of plans and facilities planning and all the other information that we may need to score highly that we all understand what the deadlines are for that. So I would encourage anybody who thinks that they are going to score high on the human health and our original scoring, that if you would like to set up a meeting with us and the project team, that you can give me an email and we can set something up.
And then it looks like we have 2 questions in the chat. Jim, I see your question. Do you want to ask it out loud? I don't want to misrepresent it because I feel like it could go a few ways.
I can do that. This is Jim Sickles calling or speaking here. And what I was trying to ask was, right now, all the residents are billed by the Public Works and the sewer district. And I wasn't sure how a loan payback plan, like what that payback plan would look like from a community that doesn't do any of their own billing.
Jump in there, Donna, if you want.
Sure. So our understanding, and Katie, definitely feel free to cut me off, but our understanding is that for communities that have principal forgiveness or that have received principal forgiveness for design, evidence of the CCDPW, so the Public Works payment structure, as well as the agreement with the sewer district to treat the wastewater is acceptable, to show that there is maintenance and treatment of the wastewater and the infrastructure involved. As far as construction, Katie, I'm not sure if you want to jump in as to how that relates to the construction, whether or not they need a separate user charge on separate from the CCDPW charge for maintenance or not.
Right, so Donna did a good job. She laid out for principal forgiveness projects, it's not the same review if it's a full principal forgiveness project, not quite the same financial review as we do for a loan. Obviously, with a project that has a loan component, we're looking at the ability to repay, make sure that your finances are sufficient, that you have revenue coming in. And that revenue stream that we look at is what we generally call the user charge system. And so that's whatever fee structure you have in place, whatever fees are going out to your users for the treatment and then operation and maintenance of the infrastructure that you have. Now, some of you, I think, have agreements for those activities, and particularly in terms of like operation and maintenance, right? So that may be in-house, or you may have an agreement to do that work, and that's okay. That's a good starting place. That's part of your user charge system. But what we're looking for is that there's a rate structure in place, and that you have the ability to adjust that rate structure if we're going to give a loan for certain infrastructure activities. And the reason for all of that is, as Donna mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have the capacity for around $700 million. We kind of blew that out of the water last year, and I think we're on track to do that again this year, but we use that as a rule of thumb, about $700 million a year. And a large portion of that comes from leveraged funding. So that's the bonds that OWDA, our financial partner, issues on our behalf so that we can give out more funding. The security for that, for the loans that are bond funded, has to be a user charge system. That's the requirement that our bondholders put in place as security. So that's what we're looking for, that user charge system and rate structure, such that, heaven forbid, right, that payment might not be able to be made. You're not bringing in enough revenue to cover your loan payments. Then that user charge, that rate system, can be increased so that you can start making your payments and cover that debt service. But we would do that review all up front and hopefully never get to that situation. But for any loan component, for any project that has a loan component, we're looking for that user charge system. And we are happy to work with each of you on your situation. I know each one might be a little bit different in how it's structured, and that's perfectly okay. we're happy to work with you guys and come up with the laundry list to say, okay, these are the pieces that we'd still be needing to fill that gap on the user charge system, or what we'd be looking for.
Jim, does that help answer your question?
I'm gonna say sort of. And what I mean by that is Public Works in the sewer district both set their own rates,
Mhm.
you know, so I didn't know how we could change the rates.
Well, and how is your system structured? Do you get a, do they put like a surcharge on that rate for your, that comes back to you for like O&M on your portion of the system that you own?
Yes,
Okay. And do you have the ability to increase that surcharge?
E-
You can ask them to increase that for your purposes?
yes.
Okay. So that's really the
Okay,
ground.
so that's the
Yeah,
piece of
that's
it.
really the
Okay,
ground level. And we'd want to take a hard look at that, and we'd look at that account where you have those surcharges coming in and make sure it's secured, you know, that it's not just an account that can be used for anything, right? We want it to be used for, you know, the infrastructure. And then is that, you know, revenue that you have coming in sufficient to cover both O&M and then your debt service?
So
Okay.
if a construction principal forgiveness loan was secured, Katie, would that loan repayment have to be reflected in that surcharge? If that's how they were to do it, in full, or would it, you know, do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. So if their project has a loan component and we're looking at that ability to repay, that's the fund we're gonna look at to say, is there sufficient funding over the life of the loan? We'd use a projection chart that shows, you know, what you're gonna pay annually.
For me to
Do you
try.
have sufficient funding in there to pay the payments on the loan? And
Okay.
if there's gonna be increases to that, you know, include those in that projection. Time there's like a cost of living or something, you know, sort of an inflationary projection for an increase in those numbers, but that's what we'd be looking for. So essentially, yes, Donna, you know, we're looking
Okay.
for that term of the loan. Are you gonna have enough money coming in to make your loan payments? Now, at the end of the day, that's not where your loan payment has to come from. So when you get the invoice from OWDA says, okay, it's time to make a loan payment, you can
Mhm.
write that check out of whatever fund you wish, you know, it doesn't have to come out of your wastewater account. But the loan, we're looking to make sure is a security that there's sufficient money coming in to cover that debt service and your O&M.
Okay, and so if it was a principal forgiveness loan and it was forgiven, then you wouldn't necessarily be paying back that money.
Correct. If it's a full principal forgiveness loan, then we're not looking at whether you have sufficient dollars for debt service, because there wouldn't be any debt service. I would caveat that to say, the tricky part for us, you know, as you all well know, with construction projects, you run into things, right? Contingencies and overruns and those kind of things. And if there's not a structure in place and we don't have the ability to give you a loan for those cost overruns, that's all gonna have to be, you know, local funded. So just
Okay,
kind of keep that in mind. So if we can give up to $4 million of principal forgiveness per project, and if your project is kind of right at that mark, anything above and beyond that would be on the borrower's tab. And not something we could adjust for later.
okay. We do have one more question. So I think, Maria, you mean maybe like when the draft program management plan is out, who would we contact to review our score? Is that your question, Maria, during that time, during the comment period?
Actually, after the application's been reviewed and we didn't get principal forgiveness, would just like to find out, you know, why we scored the way we did or whatever. Is
Yes.
that a conversation where we can have with someone there at DEFA?
Yeah, sure. We can run through it with you. You can also put in a records request, you know, all this is public information. You put in a records request to receive a copy of your, you know, the score sheet. But we can definitely walk through with you on, you know, why your project kind of scored where it did as far as the initial score, and then certainly readiness to proceed, kind of how that project shook out for those items.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay, so thank you both to Katie and Ryan for helping field some of those questions. If you do want to reach out to them or ask them any additional questions, they have a general email that you see here. And then also, if you're looking for more resources, there are a lot of other webinars that I found really helpful on their YouTube channel. So that is available for you at any time. Next steps. So if you are interested in working with the sewer district to submit a project, or if you're interested in trying to get principal forgiveness so that we can potentially be running the design of that project, you can reach out to your watershed team leader. They will be reaching out to you. And so you can also just wait for that email to come through. But as a reminder, your watershed team leaders are your main contact with the sewer district, Nicole Velez, Ann Schilling, and Cisco Rivera. And here's the map of those communities. So on the west side, you have Nicole Velez Central, you have Ann, and then on the east side is Cisco Rivera. So with that, thank you so much for joining today. I will stop sharing, maybe if I can find it. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, so thank you all for joining. We really appreciate you jumping on. Thank you to Katie and Ryan for helping field questions, and we will send this out to everyone. The recording probably Wednesday or Thursday once we're done with the second workshop. So have a great day, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Thanks, Donna.